Hey everybody, welcome back. If you've never been here before, I'm going to explain a little bit about what this mentoring stream is about. So a lot of tutorials out there talk about how to hack systems, and that's not really what this is about. This is about learning how to actually perform it from a professional penetration testing perspective. Obviously, there's hacking involved, but I have noticed that a lot of the tutorials out there just don't even talk about the pen testing side of it. They just talk about how to hack a system and then expect you to learn how to do that, the pen testing part on your own. So if you were here last time, I wanted to cover a couple things first. So the first one is that we were doing a report on that first one. So the first one was the meow target, and that was in the Hack the Box. And so we did meow. We were able to compromise the system, and I walked through how I would record that information for a report. And so I wanted to show you at least kind of what I have. It's not really it's not great because it is simply just a draft. And so just keep an idea that this isn't the final report. In fact, I'm going to continue to build on this report so that it's comprehensive of the starting point for Hack the Box. Anyway, so like I said, this is not anything near being completed. It's very rough, but basically I wanted to show you that what we did and how we converted it into this report, and then we'll add to the report as we go through later today. So basically I have a description of what we were doing, and that there was a target, and it was the host name was meow, and that these are our findings that we identified yesterday. And then it talks about each of them independently. It provides the CVS score that we generated, and then it talks about how to remediate it. It describes it, what the impact is, the mitigation, etc. So anyway, and that's for the critical and the medium, and it's for that one particular target. All right. So the see, hold on, it's saying something. Okay. Alright, so I got a slight error, but I think we should be fine. If there's any issues with the stream, let me know. But I just got an error message from YouTube saying there was an issue, but I'm just going to drive on. But let me know if there's an issue, and then we can fix that. But regardless, so let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk about fawn, and we're going to see what we can do against this. Now, as a reminder, I haven't done these, so we can do them together. If you have any ideas, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can definitely move forward on that. And then I'm using the browser version. There's two ways to access these. One is through OpenVPN, one is through the browser. I selected to do the browser simply because it's cleaner for me. I don't have to set up a virtual system in order to do this, and then it clutters up my system. I'd rather just clutter up their system, create a new image, drop it as needed. So it's just simpler for me. It's not necessarily the best way, and it's not how I would do it, obviously, for a professional pen test, because if I did this, if I actually had a professional pen test, I would have a box dedicated to that so that I had the resources and it was more reliable anyway. But for Hack the Box, I went with this option, so it's fine. All right, the other thing I want to talk about too, before we get going, is I mentioned last time about the cyber kill chain. This is the Lockheed Martin methodology, and it covers the 7 different steps that according to them, every hacker has to go through in order to compromise the system. Now again, Lockheed Martin created this for people performing defensive security. The idea is that they can inject their efforts into any of those steps to mitigate some of those threats. So for example, if we look at the delivery stage where it says delivered weaponized bundles to victims via email, etc. The idea is that if they target, the security folks target delivery, and they beef up their email delivery system to prevent any sort of attachments, then that's how they can potentially thwart an attack. Now, we can leverage this from a pen testing perspective, because if it makes sense that malicious hackers use these steps, then so do we, right? So, like I said, I talked about this last time, but what I didn't talk about really go into depth was the framework. So we have a methodology, and underneath that we have frameworks. And the frameworks basically kind of tell us what to do. It doesn't tell us the actual commands and things like that. That's a playbook, which is underneath so you got your methodology, you got your framework, and then you have playbooks. All right, so let me talk about framework real quick, because I think it's important to understand where to go to find this kind of information. A lot of organizations use the PTES. I forgot what it was called last time, but I can tell you it's the Penetration Testing Execution Standard. And it basically identifies the steps that they think we would go through in order to perform a pen test. Now, these don't match up to the cyber kill chain, so there's a lot of work that has to be done to identify what goes into which piece of the cyber kill chain. But it's out there. The other thing I wanted to mention too is there is a technical guideline that the PTES put out. Now, this is like over a decade old. Let's see, August 2014. So on the 16th. So it's going to have its anniversary here soon. All right, but anyway, there's a technical guideline, and if we go to that, we can see that there is a list of different activities that happen. So intelligence gathering, there's external footprinting, basically how to identify the systems that are online, etc., etc. So if we actually click on this, it'll tell us what kind of activities that we can do in order to identify what IP ranges and stuff like that. So for example, we can run the host command, we can run the dig command, and then as we go through, we can do DNS enumeration, etc., etc. So I don't want people to think that there's a huge mystery behind the steps required in order to perform a pen test, because it seems like it can be overwhelming. So like for example, when I say we need to do reconnaissance, and then I start bringing up tools and say, oh, we're going to do a ping, we're going to do an nmap, it's because it's already been identified as these are the best steps to go through in order to perform a pen test. And you can find out what tools to use, etc., from sites like the PTES. So just keep that in mind. Again, PTES is over a decade old, or going to be a decade old here in a few days. So there's a lot of tools that aren't on that, but it'll still give you a good starting point in order to perform penetration tests. In fact, most of the tools I use, probably about 90%, are still on this list. So I wouldn't discount it simply because it's that old. But yeah, so there's that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to do for this target. So again, the way I like to approach it is I do the penetration test against the system, and then I go back and answer the questions. So it's got a bunch of questions here, and we can take a look, but I don't want to until after I've done the penetration test, because these questions kind of give hints, right? And I just want to look at it fresh. So I'm going to copy the IP address here. I'm going to go to our system, bring up a terminal. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right, that's good. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the system is online. Let me go back to that screen so we can see here that I'll run a ping command against the target. And let's paste that in here just to make sure that it's up and running. Okay, so we can see that it's alive. So now that we know that it's alive, now we can actually do a scan to see what kind of applications are running on the system, what their version information is, etc., etc. So the same tool I used last time was nmap, and that's a tool we use a lot. And the flags I like to use initially are the SV, so that I can get some version information. I do the basic scans. So Nmap has a bunch of scripts that you can run, and the scripts are kicked off using like different commands. But in this one, the -sc uses some very basic ones. It's not aggressive. As I mentioned last time, and I've got it in other videos if you're interested in digging a little bit deeper into Nmap. The -a flag, a lot of people will use. You'll see videos on that all the time, and I would hesitate to suggest that as a standard practice because it consumes a lot of time. It's also very aggressive, and a lot of the scripts that it will use can cause problems. Now that -sc, it doesn't cause any problems. All it's really doing is basically enumeration and information gathering. So I rarely use the -A unless I'm really trying to dig into a system and try to understand it because I'm having problems compromising it. So we'll do the -sc. I'll use the -o. Again, there's three things that we basically need to understand. When we get the identity of the applications that are on a system, we need to know the version information. We need to know what operating system the system is using, and then we need to know the version of that operating system. And with those three bits of information, we can identify exploitable or whether or not that application is exploitable. So those are the three things we're going to be looking for. So that's why I put the -O. And then we're going to put the target IP address in there and let it run. Now it'll take a little bit, it shouldn't take too long, but another trick that a lot of times you'll see is identifying port ranges. With the starting systems, I'm assuming that they're not going to have a whole lot of applications running on them. When we get into real world pen tests though, I'll want to expand the port range to see if there's any administrative access on the higher ports. A lot of times like websites will have some sort of, like on port 8080 or something like that, they'll have an administrative access. So anyway, I'll expand that, but for this one I think it's fairly simple just to identify what's going on. Okay, so we've got a problem already. This is telling me exactly what we need to do. So we've got an open FTP server, VS FTPD version 3.0.3, which is probably outdated and might be exploitable. But we have an FTP port open. Now the -sc, like I said, did some scripts, and one of the things that it did is when it identified FTP, it wanted to see if there was anything exploitable against that. And in fact, it found that FTP allows anonymous access. Okay. Before we get too deep down that rabbit hole, I want to mention is that just because there's an FTP server, which is not encrypted, the communication is not encrypted, which can be finding, maybe or maybe not. Number two is that if they're using FTP and allow anonymous access, that might be okay if the information on that FTP server is not sensitive in nature. For example, you can find it from third parties like operating system images or patches or something like that, or it's just used to drop files and then you can't see them anymore. So just because FTP is on there, there's a potential for 3 findings, but it may be 0 findings. So just keep that in mind as we dig through this. But if we look right below that, it says that it identified that there is a file. So now this just made my job really easy because it identified that we can access system information or a file on that system, right? And so I'll take a look at that and see if it's sensitive in nature. And if it's sensitive in nature, then all 3 of those just became findings. The fact that it's using a clear text, the fact that it's using anonymous, and the fact that it's using FTP instead of like a secure FTP or something like that. We'll take a look here in just a second. All right, we can take a look at anything else. It's identified as a, oh, that's kind of cool. It says it's a Unix system. Usually it's Linux, right? So the fact that it says Unix, that's kind of interesting. I'm curious if we can actually compromise the system and gain access to the root account or an account to see if it's true. I have a feeling though we're going to meet our requirement once we look at this flag.txt file. So let me, before I do that, let me, as always, I need to record this information. So let me get my, get a document out, and then I'll do a copy of this. This finding, or the scan, so that I can quickly review it. So I'll copy, and I'll paste. All right, so I've got that for later in case I need it. Okay. All right, so let me clear this. Of course, I could scroll up, but when you're doing this for hours, a lot of that stuff just disappears, or it's too much of a pain to try to find it. Okay. So FTP. So FTP. Do I still have that as? Nope, I don't. Let me go back. Copy this again. Paste it. And let's see what we can do. So it's using my account because that's who I'm. It says you see like 10.129.40.98 : root. That's because I'm root on my system, but it's asking for a name, so we'll do anonymous. And then password, according to industry standards, best practice for FTP, when a system administrator deploys it, the password should match their email address. I rarely find it that way, but it has has happened a couple times. So I'm just going to try a blank password, and if it kicks back, then I'll use the a fake email address. So, okay, all right. So we're in. We need to know what, for those aren't familiar with FTP. There's a lot of need for FTP, so there's a lot of systems out there that have FTP. A lot of people just use a GUI in order to download and upload the files, which makes things a lot easier because you can do batch loads a lot easier with the GUI-based tools. But from a command line, we can look, I think it's just a question mark. Yeah. So we can see the different commands that are available to FTP. And I'll also say this too, and I don't know if we're going to be dealing with it in the future, but there's also a Windows version of kind of like what FTP is, SMB, and they have a lot of the same commands. So if you learn this and you encounter an SMB share, then a lot of the same commands. So this is definitely something you're going to want to be familiar with. All right, so I already forgot what the name of it is, but there's a go get command. So let me do an ls again to see what the file is. So, oh, that's flag. All right, get flag.txt. This is not like a Linux system where we can execute Linux commands, so we can't do a cat. We have to download it onto our system, and then that was successful. And let's see what we've got. So we'll just cat the flag. Wait, I gotta exit out of here. Exit or quit. Yeah. Okay. So I've got flag, so I'll cat the flag.txt. Okay, and so we got a value. So we're done, I think, since we got the flag, unless they're asking for more than one flag. So let's go ahead and take a look at the questions and see what we've got here. So what does the three-letter acronym FTP stand for? Okay, so I'm not going to just tell you. So we can do a man on FTP, and man stands for manual, and then we can just kind of scroll through here and we see file transfer protocol. Okay, so FTP, that's what it stands for. So let me go back. File transfer protocol. Okay, big surprise. What port does the FTP service listen on usually? Yeah, so you can always reconfigure it to whatever you want, but what we have here in ours is on port 21. So there's actually 2 channels, but when you dig into the FTP protocol, you'll understand why they have 2 different ones. One's for command and one's for data. So anyway, but 21, port 21. So let me go back. Port 21. All right, so FTP sends data in the clear without any encryption. Okay, so I just mentioned that. What acronym is used for a later protocol designed to provide similar functionality, FTP, but securely as an extension of the SSH protocol? Okay, so there's 2 types of ways we can encrypt it. One is through a shared key, which is what SSH uses, or we use like certificate, which is like Web's HTTPS. Right? The cool part is that it's easy to remember which one's which, because if there's an S on the front, it's SSH. If there's an S on the back, it uses certificate just like HTTPS. So as long as you remember that HTTPS has the S on the end, you'll never get confused on which one they're talking about. So since they're talking about SSH, the S is on the beginning, so it's going to be SFTP. Submit the answer. Yeah, okay. So just to back up a little bit, both of them are secure. One's easier than the other to set up because if you're using FTPS, then it's just as, it goes through a certificate exchange where you create the private key for that session and then you can communicate securely. If you're going to set up SFTP, then every user has to already know what that key is, and performing updates to that key becomes a nightmare. So basically in reality, you let the key out and you just don't care anymore, and then you control access to the FTP server through login processes, right? So that's the reality of it, but that's what the answer is, SFTP. All right. So what is a command we can use to send an ICMP echo request to test our connection to the target? So we went over this last time. There's a lot of different tools that will use the ICMP echo request. And probably the one they're looking for, since it ends in G, is ping. But Nmap also uses it. There's a lot of tools that will do that in order to identify and make sure that a system is up and running before it does anything. So ping, let's try that and see what it does. And of course we used ping, so I feel comfortable just putting it in there. Okay, from your scans, what version of the FTP servers we have? Let's see, it was 3.0.3. Do they need? Yeah, they need the whole thing. So they need the daemon and the version. Okay, before I submit it, let me just say again is that this information is what we would use in order to see if there's any exploits that we can use. If the VSFTP protocol is vulnerable to an attack, the actual protocol, the actual application itself, we need to know the name of it, and then we need to know the version. So we'll submit that answer. Sure it's right. Yep. Okay, so what OS? Oh, cool. Yeah, so it wants to know. Well, they should, because it's rare to have a Unix system up and running anymore. Yeah, right. What command you need to order to display the FTP client help menu? Okay, we did that. Let me go back. Let me quit out of here. And basically all we did was the question mark. Right, so let me go back here. So, oh wait, so it's asking before that. So we did that too, I think, didn't we? Nope, we did not. So when we're not in the actual application, you can use -H. There's a lot of applications that use the -H. A lot of them will also use dash help or double dash help usually. So those are always good guesses. So let's just do that. FTP. See what the answer is. That's correct. Okay, so it told us what is the username that is used over FTP when you want to log in without having an account. When we did our scan, it told us exactly what to use. So we can see here that it said anonymous FTP login allowed. So it told us anonymous. All right, so the answer would be anonymous. Let's do that. I don't know. What is the response code? Is it 303? It is... Where is it? 230. Ah, okay, 230. I don't know that offhand. Kind of odd question. Sure. I mean, the response codes to web requests is probably more important than knowing what the response code for an FTP message is. A couple commands we can use to list the files and directories available on the FTP server. One is dir. Is it? I don't think I've ever used dir. Yeah, look at that. I just go... I'm Linux guy, so I just use ls all the time. Look at that. That's cool. I just learned something. I just learned something. All right. ls. Let's submit the answer. All right. What's the command to download the file we found on the FTP? As we did that, it was the get. Where did it go? Yeah, right here. Yeah. Is that so? Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't even, does Linux actually use dir? Let me try that. So silly. I look, that's cool. I'm assuming that's done that the entire time that they've had Linux, so that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, thanks everybody. Learned something new. All right, let's see what else we got. What's the command? Oh yeah, get. So there's also like I said, there's it's simpler using a GUI to do FTP because it handles multiple transfers easier, but there's also mget, so multiple get. So just be aware that that's there too. So you don't have to do each one manually. So, submit the root flag. Let me grab that. I have it right there. Copy. And I'll put it in here. Now, before we go anywhere, I need to do a report. Okay, it's going to be terminated. Ooh, do I need to grab anything? It's going to terminate the machine. I don't think it'll terminate this. Oh yeah, I need a screenshot. So let me go up here. Now you won't see this, but I'm going to basically get a screenshot of this right here. Right here. Okay, so let me get my snippet tool. Like I said, you're not going to see this, but trust me, I'm doing it. Let's see. New. Right here. Okay. Then just give me a second. I'm going to save it because I'll forget if I don't. And this was fawn. Okay. All right. So I saved it, and I'll bring it into the report. All right. So we'll go back to the report now. So we're going to have a unencrypted protocol usage again. So let's go back to here. We can just stack on top of this. So what was our IP address? Okay, so thank you for that. The IP address was right here. Copy that. Go to the ghostwriter. Okay, so we got that in there now. We'll obviously have to clean this up for 10 dot. I'm not going to do too much here. So then this one, we were able to access the FTP system file share anonymous. Okay. All right. And so then I would talk about what we found. Let me upload the evidence. Let me upload the file. Oh, yeah. You know what? I'll do that later. Forget it. Okay. So then I'd go back. Oh, let me save this. And then again, we found anonymous. See that? Insecure, unauthenticated file share, same thing. So not going to work. Basically, I could probably use this one, the weak local account password, and then yeah, and then the sensitivity of that information. So whatever. So basically, I'll dig on this later tonight and clean it up, but I think we can get one more in here regarding FTP. Let's just see if there's an FTP. I don't think it. No, both of those. We are already using those, so we would just repeat that. Wait a minute. Weak. Oh, maybe I didn't. Yeah, unauthenticated file share. So that we don't have. Okay, so let me go back to that. Okay, unauthenticated file share or service access. Remember, I wouldn't care if it didn't have sensitive information. The fact that it had a flag on there indicates that it was sensitive information, basically saying we owned the machine in some form or fashion. And so that we would go through and probably identify, or let's do the calculator real quick, just for shits and giggles. Attack vector network, low complexity, no privileges required. Didn't have to click anything. Leave that there. So confidentiality, high. Integrity, I didn't test if we could overwrite it. So I'll put low. And availability, none. So it was a high. All right, so you could argue about some of these, but I think that's a good starting point. So we got high information, or high criticality, or high severity on the risk. Okay. So let's save that and go back. So now we have, from the first server, we have a critical, high, and or for critical on a medium, and now we've got a high and a second finding on the medium. So we're doing good. Okay. I think we obviously have time for another one. Does anybody have any questions before I start moving on to that one? I'll at least start up the spawn the machine. But if anybody has any questions, just hit me up in the chat section. And again, you don't have to ask about just this. You can ask about penetration testing, security, questions about certifications, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's kind of funny is that if you dig into the history of Linux and Microsoft, Microsoft was trying to replicate a lot of what Linux did in order to compete, and but they needed to be different. So, like in Linux or Unix, it was // So Windows oh no, we're going to do backslashes, right? So they confuse stuff, right? They make it difficult to go back and forth, but they obviously enjoyed the functionality and the efficacy and the distribution of Unix systems across the network at the time that they wanted to compete. So that was their competition. So they replicated it as much as they could. And to be honest, I think they screwed up a lot of that stuff too. So, but whatever. Especially when you start talking about DLLs and stuff like that, that was crazy. All right, so we've got another machine. I didn't see any questions, so we'll just go ahead and move on. Let's see. I'll copy this. All right, let me clear this up. And I'm going to create a new document. Let me put the IP address in there because... All right, so identify that, make sure the system is up. First thing we need to do. Okay, it's up and running. So the next thing we need to do is find out what services are running on it. And then again, so nmap-sv for version information. I want not only the applications, but the version information. The -sc for running some scripts. I mean, it worked out so well with FTP last time, so why not do it again? -o to get the operating system information, and then paste and see what we get. All right, so again, it'll have a minute here. And I don't know what else to chat about real quick, but I guess I can just kind of provide some filler. Is that one of the things I want to talk about is at some point, and then this works out great, is Ghostwriter itself is an open source tool. There are a lot of other tools out there that make life a lot easier for reporting. So then what the problem is that the Ghostwriter is all on you to build up and put it together so that you can actually be functional, right? And there's no support. But there's some other organizations out there that have put in a lot of time and effort, and it's a paid service. One of the more well-known is Plextrack, and I've used it before. I will say everybody has problems with every reporting platform I've ever dealt with, even in-house ones. I've been through so many organizations that create their own, then they hate it, so they go out and find a third party that does it, then they use their reporting, they love it in the beginning, and then they hate it, and then they go to something else, and it's just a continual cycle. So there's nothing great out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that is very supportive, and if depending on how much energy you want to put into developing your own reporting tool, you can make decisions based on that. But this one, Ghostwriter, fairly simple. Oh, the other thing I should tell you too. Let me go back to the other screen real quick. I saw your question, Mike. I'll answer it here in just a second. So Ghostwriter, I'm actually using a Docker version of Ghostwriter. So it makes it easy, right? It handles it all in a Docker container. It's persistent, and so I can just make any modifications and export the files, the whole 9 yards, just using this. I'm only using this for demonstration purposes. I haven't used this for any real world pen testing. This is just for what we're doing now. So people are aware of this tool, and if they really want to start working on reporting, which you should do that with every pen test or every system that you hack. You should do that. You should work on reporting because it's critical. As I mentioned last time, we don't get paid to. Actually, I will hack systems for free. I'll do it all day long, but I need to get paid for the report, and the customer will only pay if they get a report. So this is probably the most critical piece that you need to work on to get it right for the customer. And so I have a lot of angst because people kind of gloss over this part when they talk about professional penetration testing. Even in classes like the ones you'll pay $8,000 for, they don't talk about reporting at all. It's just glossed over, and there's a whole whole infrastructure around this that is absolutely critical. So learn to do reporting. Here's a tool. It's free. You can start now. You'll have to import your findings, but once you do, and that's also available for free. There's a couple individuals from Carnegie Mellon. They generated like 100 plus, which I've imported into here, 100 plus findings that are free to use. So you have all the tools available to actually generate reports. Okay, so all right, let me go back. I'm off of that. So I got two questions. So the first one that Mike asks is, when you did the ping, it appears if you put the ping command into the background with Control-Z. So there's two things that I like to talk about when we're talking about pings. One is that Linux system will let you ping forever, right? And then, but Windows systems will do it like 3 times and then stop, right? And so Control-Z, Control-C, you just need to terminate it at some point, right? So otherwise it's just going to continue to fill up your screen. So yeah, so that's what I do. I use the Control-Z. You use the Control-C, whatever you want to do. It's your system. Oh, that's the other thing too. So, you know, if you're putting stuff in background and it's continuing to do what it does, if you're doing a regular pen test, especially an external, that shouldn't matter at all, right? The amount of traffic that you generate. Yeah, I think it actually does keep it in the background, but the point I'm trying to make though is that it doesn't matter, right? I just use Control-Z because that's the first key that's nearest to my finger, or to the control command. So, but again, if I'm doing an external, I should be able to make as much noise as possible, and it should not impact the customer at all. If I'm doing an internal, you need to be more cognizant of all that, right? I can see if there's if it's running in the background. Yep, I got 2 of them running. So yeah, Control-Z puts it in the background, and it's still going. I don't care. So, but again, if this was an internal, I would care, right? So, yeah. So there's that. So we got another question. What was my first bug bounty? I have never done a bug bounty. So I grew up in an age where you couldn't hack systems without approval. Obviously, still the case, but nobody wanted anybody to attack their systems. And so bug bounty is a fairly new thing, and I never got on the bandwagon to do that stuff. I've had people who reported to me that would make more money doing bug bounties than we paid them as consultants. So if you know your stuff, it can be very lucrative. I just never got into it. So yeah, so that's my boring story about bug bounties and my history of with it. So yeah, yeah. Keep the questions coming. I'm happy to answer any of them. Definitely shifts my mind into different areas, so I always appreciate that. Okay, so I've done. What did I just clear out? Did I actually do the nmap? Oh, I erased it. Oh, shoot. It won't scroll up for me either. Okay, so we get to do that again. Sorry. All right. Are you aware of the whole thing with Android security? No. Whoa, what is it? Regarding bug bounties, are you aware of the whole thing with Android security? So I'm not sure what you're referencing, so happy to be illuminated. So what are we talking about? Now, I've participated in mobile tests. Oh yeah, so Google actually, from what I understand, pays out quite well along a lot of their stuff. So That's definitely and of course their organization is huge. Oh, and then of course Apple, right? I mean, if you have a walk by 0-day, I think their last I heard it was like $1 million or something crazy like that. So, so there's definitely some money out there for that. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so there is a whole community around that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about bug bounty versus professional penetration testing, because that's, since we're on that topic. So what I've discovered, I'm always from a shop where we do full penetration tests, and we oftentimes talk to customers and they say, well, we have a bug bounty problem, so we don't really think we need a pen test, and that's horrifying to hear. And the reason why I say that is because the problem is that a professional penetration test will look at the entire organizational architecture and understand how all that works. And I hate to use this word, I choked on it just a second ago, but holistically. We look at it from a holistic perspective where we try to understand what the system does, who it's talking to, why it's talking to that system, and then understanding the complexities of that. Because the idea is that if we access a system during let's say an external, right? We access a system, the customer may want us to pivot into their network, right? You never really see that in bug bounty. And what ends up happening is people who do bug bounties, they get really good at one thing, or maybe a handful of things, and they hit a system, and if they find those, then they submit it. If they don't, they move on to the next system, the next customer, whatever. So it's not holistic, it's not comprehensive, it's a very targeted attack. Now those targeted attacks can be really good because these people spend a lot of time and effort to really hone that down and automate it, and that can be better than, in that one specific attack, better than a professional penetration test, but it doesn't do the company as good as a professional pen test because, again, we look at everything and we try to attack it from multiple vectors. So that's my soapbox on bug bounty versus professional penetration test. But companies like to do bug bounties because they don't pay anything unless you find something. And then they also have these complex rules on what they will and will not take. So, it's a bit of a challenge to be going up against it. And I've heard a lot of people complain that, they find these things and they don't get paid out for whatever reason. So anyway, not a field that I'm really interested in participating in, but there is a place for them, but it is not a comprehensive pen test, and customers need to be very aware of that. So I've had a lot of conversations about that. Okay. Let's see. So we've got, what do we got? Okay, so we got RPC. All right, so what we have here, and it's not telling you this, is we have an SMB shares. What do we have? Does it find them? Didn't find them. It does say SMB. There we go. So it did find, but it didn't find what the shares are. So it looks like we're going to have to do that manually. All right, so we just did FTP. Maybe this is why it's right after. So we just did FTP, which is a file transfer protocol that is used ubiquitously through the internet. And then Microsoft said, hey, we should have something similar, but we're not going to name it FTP because we're unique and we're better. So we're going to do SMB. And that is something message blocks. We'll figure it out. Anyway, but FTP by design is clear text, right? We've already talked about that. There are alternatives for our encrypted. SMB is usually unencrypted as well. Server, thank you. It's server message block. Thank you, helping me out here. So yeah, so SMB is probably unencrypted too. I'm not gonna. I mean, I guess we could, but I could bring up Burp Suite, or not, better yet, I could bring up Wireshark and see if it's encrypted or not. But that's for yeah, we can decide that. In fact, we can decide that as a group if you want to. Actually, you're getting kind of close to the hour, so maybe not. All right, so we have SMB, and so there's a tool that we use, SMB client. I wonder if PTES actually has. Oh, I'm not typing anything. Oh. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, let me see if PTES. Oh, you know what? They do a terrible job. Their thing is broken. Their search engine or their search window is broken. Let me see if. Okay, so. Oh my God, Core Impact. They're telling us to use Core Impact. I wonder if. Well, there's 65 of them. THC Hydra. Okay, that's fine. Medusa. Here's all the tools. Okay, so those were brute force attacks. Basically, try to see if we can brute force our way into this. No, we don't need that. Let's see, SMB authorization, SMB login. Okay, it doesn't look like it's coming up with anything really easy for us. I could scroll through all of them. I don't see a command. Anyway, so we're going to use SMB client because I said so. Because that's all I've ever used. I don't even know if there's anything else. So SMB client, and then we can basically do a list of the file of the shares. So again, it's like, just think of it like FTP. That's the easiest way that I always think of or remember how to do this. Is it just pretend it's FTP, and in this case we're going to do SMB client, and we're going to do the dash capital L because we want to see what file shares they have. It's usually it's basically directories. When I say file shares, it's basically directories on the system. So we'll paste it in here, and we'll hit go, and we'll see what it. Okay, so blank password. So we got another blank password. So authentication problem. All right, so we got admin C. That's the C drive. Let's see, remote IPC. These are on by default. Very rarely have I ever gotten into these, but we can look here in just a second. Anything else I want to do before I try to log into it? Man, it's been a while, so what I have to do, let's see. Service, password options. I need to do the actual file share, so it'll be SMB client. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. Let me do a man page on it. Because I'm going to have to put the slashes and the share name, etc. So let me make sure I'm doing that right. Usually there's examples on the bottom. I don't have my, so I usually have, yeah, see, here we go. Here's some examples. I usually have my notes, but I don't have my notes. So let's see. Anything else? Nope, I'm gonna quit. So SMB client, and then we'll go to work shares. Actually, you know what? I don't have to do that. I just have to go 129. Nope. Not enough characters. Yep, so I do have to do that. So, is it work shares? We got a flag. Okay. Let's do DIR. Does it do DIR? Yeah, that. Okay. Oh wait, that's me? That's me. That didn't work. Alright people, need your help. What's the command before I start looking it up on Google? And too long. Target share. Oh, so that's what it was. So I need to put the IP address in the whole thing. Okay, so now I'm in. So there's a couple of folders. Amy J, James P. See what the commands are. Looks very similar to what FTP shows. Oh, you know, not in the right window. Mine's bad. So again, so I put in SMB client, I put in the IP address, and then work shares. That's the format. And then I did a question mark, basically to list out the commands. And like I said, it looks very similar to what we do for FTP. So got mget, etc., etc. So we'll just have to check them out. So we'll go to amy.j. UNLS has got work notes. All right, sure, we'll just get that. All right, anything else? Nope. So what else we got? James. P. Else. There's our flag. Okay, so let me get that. Okay. All right, so we have that. Nothing else we can look at. I mean, we can try some of the other ones. Let's go admin. See if we get. Okay, failed. C. We're not gonna get C. Okay, so no anonymous access to those. This is the anonymous for the workspace. Let me do -L just see if I'm forgetting anything. There's one more. Oh, IPC. Anything there, but I'll do it. Oh, we're in. Okay, so there's nothing here. All right, so we exfiltrated as much of the data out of the SMB application or service that was running. So let's take a look at the flag, and then we'll do the answers, and then we will do the report. So let's see what we got here. You know what I forgot to do? Oh, flag.txt. Hope that overwrote, because I know we had a flag before. I forgot to take screenshots. Let me take my screenshot. Sorry, guys. You can't see this, but I'm taking a picture of the fact that we were able to log into the work shares. Let's see if that is, what are we on, fawn? Okay, so let me bring it over here. So we can see that this is my screenshot. Basically, I just captured the fact that we were able to log in with a blank password or any password, right? We'll just tell them it's a blank password. I just save that and I'll put that into the report. So let's go back. All right, so hack the box, SMB. Oh, so there you go, Mike. Server block. See that? Yep. Port. Okay, so there's actually a couple ports, but I didn't save my scan. So we'll do 445. See if it tells us that more clearly down here. No, it does not. Yeah, it does. So under here, it gives some info. Oh, no, this is all new. This is the script stuff. So it doesn't tell us what port it is, but it's 445. Let's do that. Yeah, okay. So there's actually two ports. 445 is what they were after. So. Service name. Oh, see, that's why I don't like doing this beforehand. So. Service name for port 445 that came up on our Nmap scan. So that was. Do they want the question mark? Nope, they do not want the question mark. Back out. So the question mark, let me before I go too far, so because this has come up a lot, and I think we need to talk about this. So when you see service here, what's happening is Nmap says this is what we think it is simply because it's on this port, right? It doesn't actually do a test on the protocol to verify it. It doesn't do that. You'll see down here that it has done additional work, so we can be confident about it. But the truth of the matter is that when it does the initial scans without the -SV, then it basically just does a guess. All right, so let's go back. Oh, we're on dancing. Oh, I screwed that up. Okay. Oh, we got that one. So flag or switch to list. Okay, we did that. We basically did the help. Where is it? It should tell us here. -L to list the different shares. Okay. So list -L. I keep hitting the enter key instead of the button. That was successful. How many shares? There were 4 shares. Admin, IPC, C, and then work whatever. So 4. Oh, now it's going to ask me. It was work shares. Work. Make sure we're right. Yep. Okay, same as it was before. What's the command to use? That was get. Okay, we need the root flag. Did it say root flag or just the box? What did it say? Root flag. Okay, so it's saying it's a root flag. Hopefully it overwrote. And it's not the one from the previous system. Okay, it did overwrite. Cool. Alright, so we've done that. We need to go to... Yay! Dancing has been pwned. Cool. Alright, so we need to go to our... let's see if there's any SMB. It's probably going to be the same thing. Insecure SMB usage. There we go. Let me get that. I'm going to add that. What was the other one? Said SMB signing not required. Let's see. So we can just drill in here and basically says that, yeah. Probably add that one a little bit. I don't know for sure. I don't know. I haven't tested that, so I'm not going to add that, but probably my bet is that we could probably dig into that. All right, so we'll go back to the report and secure SMB usage. All right, so we've already talked about all this stuff. Right now it's a medium. Here's all this stuff, yada yada. Here's some reference link. We would have to make sure that that's actually accurate and valid for this particular environment. Before I do this, let me just say one more time, or say this out loud. Even though this is default stuff, this is just a tool to help you write. It isn't something that you just leave alone. So understand what it's trying to say and then rewrite it. This isn't like, you did in high school where it's just copy and paste. This has to be unique to the organization that you're pen testing, because they'll see this stuff and they'll know if it's just copy and paste. They've seen this, if customers have seen this over and over again, they'll know if you're actually putting any effort into it. And reality is that, like, for example, network-based tasks like printing, right, may or may not have any sort of reality based on the actual real-world environment of the customer. So use this as a template. Don't just click accept, right? Don't just save this and think you're done, because it looks terrible, absolutely terrible. So I got to put the host IP address in there and everything, but let's just do it real quick. So network, attack complexity, I would say low. Privileges required, since it was anonymous, didn't require a password, and it didn't, I'm not, T. Wilhelm is definitely not an account on that system, so didn't require any user interaction other than the failed efforts of the system administrator. Joke, in my scope, unchanged, confidentiality. So obviously it was a root, they call it a root flag, so let's say that's high. Integrity, yeah, we can probably upload it and replace it, so that's a high. Availability, we can delete the stuff, so high. Yeah, critical. There we go. Now again, if the information in there was just, like not sensitive in nature, then we would downgrade that probably even down to a low. So, but in this case, since they considered it a root flag and we were able to pwn the box, then obviously it was considered a high confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, okay, let me just save that. I'll go back and I'll mess with the rest of that stuff later. Okay, I think we are done for the day. However, I am here to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to put them in the chat while I kind of clean things up a little bit here and probably just drone on a little bit about this, that, and the other. So I'm going to go ahead and terminate this real quick. You know what? Did I get my, yeah, I got my screenshots. I didn't get that. Yeah, I did. Okay. I did not. What is that? Well, I know what 0.0.0.0 is, but what's the exploit? And is it cool? It should be cool. There's a lot of stuff that was happening at DEF CON. I was actually kind of surprised. There was some... The thing that I was looking for, though, is more information about CrowdStrike and stuff like that, but I didn't really see any of that. First position to take if... What do you feel is the best first position to take if your ultimate goal is pen testing? So I will say this, is you need to be a guru at something before you can be good at pen testing. And so there's basically a few different tracks. One is, I used to just have two tracks. One was programming. So if you're really good at programming, So web application, mobile application, Internet of Things, those kind of things would be great. So definitely dig in. If those are the things you want to do, if your end goal is to do those kinds of pen tests, then programming should be what you're really good at. Now, the disadvantage is there's not really good certs out there for programming. So it's, get really good at it, and then you can convert that into exploiting systems. Because a lot of times when we do like web applications or any application, we often ask for the actual code. Do you want us to look at the code? Do you want us to do a code review? And I would say about half the time they say yes. It's usually predicated on how much it costs to do the pen test. But there's a lot of tools that allow us to quickly go through and identify potentially exploitable inputs within the application, or bad cryptography or whatever. So, but if you're interested in doing web and IoT and things, mobile apps and things like that, then programming. If you're interested in networking network pen tests, I would actually say you need to be very comfortable with doing web app stuff too. So there's a bit of programming involved there. But what network pen tests focus on is non-unique code, non-unique application. So basically, bespoke code that is written for websites is usually out of bounds for network pen testing. So you may not have to understand what the customer did to make that web app theirs, but you have to understand how the services behind that web app work, and the applications or tools that are installed, like Java or drawing a blank, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes, tools that you use. PHP, for example, if that's installed, you'll need to know how to exploit those, right? Not the bespoke stuff that they've written specifically in-house, but in general, you need to understand how a lot of that other stuff works. But also you need to know architecture. You also need to know system administration, both Unix, Linux, and Windows. You need to understand how Active Directory works and all that other stuff. And now the third one that is now coming in is cloud. So cloud, I would actually say cloud is primarily focuses on the IAMs, the configuration, right? So I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there's a configuration access control layer that everything has permissions, and there's multiple permissions for each thing. And so you have this layer of access that you can exploit, but on top of that is the servers, or some of the other applications that are running behind the scenes that you can exploit. And so what you end up having to do for cloud, you have to understand the cloud architecture and how to exploit those permissions, so that you can then maybe exploit a web server, or maybe exploit a Linux system. And then once you do that, that system may have access to additional additional permissions at the cloud layer. So then you go from that system and you exploit, again, the permissions at the cloud to attack something else, right? And so it's a lot more complex, but you still have to understand the cloud architecture in addition to web applications, in addition to system administration, whether it's Windows or not, Active Directory or Azure, stuff like that. So find out what you're really interested in, because if you don't like the idea of chasing after cloud permissions, like IAM permissions, stay the hell away from cloud, because you're going to be knee deep in that. And if you don't like programming, then stay the hell away from application, right? So that's what I would suggest, is take your first position if your ultimate goal in pen testing is take that position that relates to what you want to be a subject matter expert in, be a guru in. Okay. Security says that some browsers are not locked down to local access through 0.0.0.0. Huh. So client-side attacks, that's what we're looking at. I mean, that's valid. I'd have to find out more about that. It's interesting. Yeah. Oh, cross-site scripting. Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Huh. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for bringing that up. Let me copy that. Can I copy that? Yeah, copy text. I'm gonna save that and look for that later. Yeah, let's see. There it is. This just came out last week. Huh, I'll have to check that out. Very cool. Right, so let's see what else. Oh yeah. So this one was, oh, not that one. Yeah, so this one, the badge. I don't know about the badge debacle, but the hotel searches was crazy, right? And it was very targeted towards the hackers, right? They targeted primarily those individuals that were part of the DEF CON and Black Hat block of hotel spaces. So, bunch of assholes. Okay, not surprised. Not surprised. Hey, my pleasure, and thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. And I'll wrap this up here in just a second. But if you have any questions later, by all means, make sure you leave comments underneath this stream when it hits YouTube, because I answer all the comments. Right? I've got nothing else to do, so I answer the comments. I love interacting with people. So by all means, leave a comment down there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also, definitely check out the Discord server if you haven't joined already. There's a bunch of us that all skill levels, some smarter, a lot of people smarter than me out there that are on this system, especially if you're talking about application pen testing, that I won't be able to answer questions to, but there are people there that will. So if you have any questions, even basic ones, we've had people come on and say, hey, I've never done this before, what do I do? And so then we have a conversation with them about first steps and stuff. So head over to the Discord, hang out, chat, make it related to pen testing, make it not related to pen testing, whatever you want to do. Happy to have you over there. Okay, it looks like all the questions are dried up, so I think that we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Again, looking forward to your comments and questions. Otherwise, I'm doing this again tomorrow. We're going to continue and just basically re-emphasize the process that we use to do professional penetration testing, and I'll have an updated report, so we can take a look at it then. All right, thanks again, and you guys have a good night.